We pick right back up where last episode left off, and Bizet jumps into action. Darius pulls out a strange-looking card and drops it. Once he has Illya cut off from her friends, Darius says that Miyu told him all about her travels and experiences, and rather than being angry, he seems happy that she had such a grand tale. He thanks Illya for gathering the class cards, which he made, but rather than trying to get her to return them, he asks that she keep them. On the outside, Bizet and Kuro can't seem to break through the ice shield, giving Kuro the realization that it must be a noble phantasm. Suddenly, Tanaka shows up, and she's giving off so much heat that when Kuro tries to stop her, she burns her hand. Darius tells Illya that the oxygen in the barrier is running out, so they have to make their talk quick. He keeps referring to the situation as a myth and a stage, and calling Illya an actor. Somehow, Tanaka smashes through the wall, and Darius mentions that Tanaka was not in Miyu's memories. Once the ice dome shatters, they attack Darius, but he parries both Kuro and Bizet, and then Illya even after she installs Saber. A gravity trap pulls them down. Oh, sorry, not gravity, something called conceptual interference. Either way, it floors our main party. Darius tries to kill off Tanaka, but she calls him a counterfeiter. Erica then says something unheard to Illya, and then they leave, and we see Darius turn into a younger man. Gil shows back up, saying that he was at Kirei's ramen shop and he missed out on all the action. They bring him up to speed and name the noble phantasms that Darius used, but Gilgamesh says that they can't exist since he doesn't know about them. Basically, Gilgamesh's whole shtick is that as humanity's oldest hero, every legendary weapon and treasure that ever existed belonged to him at one point, hence why the Gate of Babylon has so many swords. So if there's a noble phantasm that he doesn't recognize, it shouldn't exist. Because if it did exist, then he should know about it, just based on how his noble phantasms work. Meanwhile, they're trying to figure out what the deal with Tanaka is. She managed to destroy the ice dome, and now she's giving off so much body heat that it's making it super hot inside the school, despite it being freezing outside. Back at Ainsworth Castle, Darius comes into Miyu's room through the window. Well, that explains why the doors in the castle lead to different places. Oh, this doesn't look good. Miyu tries to resist, but Darius says that since they can't harm her, because she's the vessel for the Holy Grail, they'll torture Shirou if she doesn't cooperate. An interesting thing they're doing here. I have a theory about what's going on, but I'll do a discussion on that later. Miyu passes out from the pain, even though it didn't physically harm her. She wakes up in her bed with Erica keeping her company. Erica seems to want to be friends with Miyu by bringing her books and making sure she's not bored. She mentions that she met Illya and thought she was nice, but also a liar. This was the unheard dialogue she said earlier. She called Illya a liar because Illya said that you shouldn't hurt people, and yet swung a sword at Darius. I get what she's saying, but it's obvious why it's not that simple. Kuro wakes up and finds that Illya is gone and the window is open, and her class cards have been left on the bed. I guess that explains the weird Illya bear during the opening sequence. I'm noticing a pattern with this season. Start off with a serious moment, add some bullshit. Some more plot progression, then bullshit. More plot progression, more bullshit. Plot, bullshit. It's like I said earlier, every time the story gets too far along, they remember what we're actually watching, and then they need to add some bullshit to bring us back down to earth. It's like they want to just barely stop the show from being great. So Kuro and Bizet note that the barrier never alerted them, and so they go consult Kid Gil about this. Okay, that was actually pretty funny, because that's something I can see the real Gilgamesh doing. Yes, give Kuro the same treatment you gave Illya in Unlimited Blade Works. Gilgamesh surmises that the Ainsworths could have used his concealment cloth to sneak past the barrier, since it can avoid magic detection, and they lost him when they were inside the castle. Speaking of, back at the castle, Angelica is trying to brainwash Illya, but she can't do it because her emotions retreated further into her subconscious. In her words, it's into a place that apparently used to contain a personality, but now doesn't, aka the part of Illya's mind where Kuro was stored before she manifested a physical form. Kind of a cop-out, but I'll accept it. So when Illya wakes up, she finds herself inside a stuffed animal. So now we understand the Ainsworths' magecraft. They specialize in displacement. The doors in the castle lead to places they shouldn't, they can open portals, and they can even transfer a soul into a new body. This is kind of reminiscent of another type of magic from the mainline Fate series, but that's a rabbit hole and a huge spoiler, so I'll save that one for later. So, in this body, Illya can't move, or speak, since the body is made out of fluff. No muscles to move. They kidnapped Illya so that Miyu would be more comfortable staying with them. This was Erika's idea. They decide to take Illya's now dormant body, which is inhabited by a fake personality, to Miyu's room. So, Illya's kind of stuck now. Completely immobile, stuck inside a plushy body.
私は一人じゃ何にもできない。今までやってこれたのも全部ルビーがいたからで。理屈や工程をすっ飛ばして結果だけをイメージする。
Wait, no.
このくらい能天気の方が魔法少女に向いてるんです。
You're not serious.
できないって決めてかかっちゃそこで終わり。
You have got to be kidding me right now.
だって私動けるよ。嘘と気合があれば何でもできるんだ。
I am not caffeinated enough for this, and I'm all out of espresso. Illya is so airheaded that she can start moving a body that doesn't even have muscles. That's literally what they just said. Not by magecraft, whether it be as a magical girl or just having her own magic circuits, but she overcomes this limitation by sheer willpower. This has got to be the dumbest thing they've BS'd so far. It's not as bad as a lot of stuff they've done in this series, but in terms of sheer absurdity, this has broken the scale. I'll never be surprised by anything they do from here on out. So, Dahlia, or Berlia, or whatever we're supposed to call this thing, starts running off to find Miyu, but she gets stopped by Beatrice. The Berserker takes Illya back to her room and reveals that she has a shrine to someone named Julian. Not even gonna lie, this isn't even super unrealistic for Fate. I mean, just look at some of the characters from Grand Order and this seems pretty tame. So after Beatrice gets done fangirling, she starts ripping the heads off of all of her stuffed animals, playing Loves Me, Loves Me Not. But before she can decapitate Illya, she's interrupted. To be honest, I completely forgot that Rin and Luvia were even part of this series. Their presence was so dismissible that I didn't even notice they were gone. So they've been brainwashed and turned into maids. Basically the same procedure as what happened to Illya. When Erika brought Illya's body to Miyu, she was completely distraught since it was basically just a shell. Erika mentions that she prefers dolls to stuffed animals because dolls can move and talk. This adds a bit more context to what Beatrice said earlier, saying that she was a doll. So that means that she's not a homunculus. Rin and Luvia start cleaning up Beatrice's room and throwing away all the decapitated stuffed animals. Again, the writers confirming what we knew all along. This version of Illya and Ruby are both trash. Beatrice gets furious, especially when they dismantle her Julian dummy, and she prepares to smack them with a berserker arm. Illya tries to get their attention, but still can't speak, because, you know, no vocal cords. That's not new. You've been trashed since the first episode. But again, because she's apparently too stupid to obey the laws of physics, she just tries really hard and starts talking. Okay, I've made enough trash jokes. Illya realizes that their bodies are currently just like hers, and their souls must be elsewhere. They debate on how to dispose of Illya, and Luvia makes the compelling argument that most things are combustible. They decide to cut her up into tiny pieces and then burn her. They should do the same to Ruby while they're at it. Illya runs away and ends up in the attic, where the Ainsworths have a very bad rat problem. And underneath a giant pile of rats, it's Sapphire. Illya gets mauled by the mice, and uses Sapphire to trance. Okay, to be fair, this is something that I actually wished for back in Season 1. I said that Illya and Sapphire should have been partners instead. I just wish that the setting was less absurd. Luvia and Rin give chase, and Sapphire informs Illya that she has to inflict enough pain on them to snap them back into reality. However, Illya's prana output is too low in this form and she can't deal enough damage. Meanwhile, Erica is being creepy with Illya's body and starts cutting off her clothes. Speaking of, Illya tries again, using her slashing ability, but only rips open Luvia's shirt. Seeing this as a threat, the mages draw out their own Noble Phantasm cards and begin attacking with a vengeance. Each Noble Phantasm is called a nameless, be it a sword or a shield, and they dissolve after a single use. The fight knocks Illya through the floor and into Erica's room. After striking her own head, Illya is still stuck inside the plushie. Sapphire spots a sigil on Illya's body, and they figure out that it's the seal that maintains the soul swap. Angelica shows up and proceeds to chop Berlia into pieces. Hey, I got my wish from earlier. Too bad Kiri won't get his pork bone replacements, though. I think we've reached an all-time high with the bullshit in this series. This isn't the most deplorable thing they've ever done, not by a long shot, but they somehow managed to make the situation even more absurd than it already was. We already established that Illya is too stupid to be bound by the laws of physics, but this defies anything that is possible. While in freefall, her decapitated head changes trajectory, grabs Sapphire with her mouth, and fires a perfectly accurate shot to the seal on her dormant body to break the spell. No. Just no. After that unbelievable stupidity, Illya is returned to her body and she goes into trance mode using Sapphire, for real this time. Somehow, even though Ruby is the more perverted one, Ilya's trance mode with Sapphire is even skimpier. Rin and Luvia attack again and blast Illya out of the castle. This 3-on-1 fight is rather unbalanced. Angelica then decides to tell Illya what the Ainsworths' goal is, as Gilgamesh does the same for the team back at school. He refers to the Ainsworths as heroes of justice and informs them that the world around them is slowly dying, hence why it's snowing in the middle of summer, and other plants and wildlife are dying off. The Ainsworths' plan is to use Miyu as a holy grail, so that their wish to save the world will be granted. Also, based on this image here, we see that Kid Gil has at least 2 smaller holy grails in the Gate of Babylon earlier. I know this is meant to be a visual gag, but when they actually try to get serious, these kind of jokes really come back to bite them. Although that's probably just the holy grail from Babylonia. Angelica spells it out to Illya that if they don't use Miyu's powers, then humanity goes extinct. But if she does become the Holy Grail, then the world can be saved by turning humanity into organisms that can survive Earth's changing environment, but that leads to Miyu's life force being extinguished. Illya uses the Assassin card to evade another strike, and Angelica lights the trees on fire to cut off Ilya's escape. Erica brings Miyu up to speed on what's been happening with Illya, and apparently Darius has been in the dark about this as well. Kuro shows up to save Illya, and when Angelica starts asking her the same questions, Kuro chooses to save Miyu without hesitation, stating that since Miyu is a dear friend, she holds more value to her and Illya than a world they know nothing about. To be fair, this is a relatable dilemma. It kind of delves into the ideology of the main Fate series, where choosing to save one means not saving another, and valuing the lives of a single loved one over a group of strangers. The writing's starting to get good again. I'm waiting for the bullshit to come back. Like this totally necessary sequence of Darius giving Erica a spanking for her mischief, with close-up shots of her underwear that I'm not going to show. Anyway, Darius is upset with Erica for putting his myth in jeopardy. The battle continues on, and things don't look so good for our heroes. Can't believe I just called them that. But no matter what they try, Angelica is just too strong for them. Illya gets stabbed trying to save Kuro, but we all know that because she's using the Assassin card, she gets decoyed, so this seemingly emotional moment from Kuro is totally wasted. Despite Kuro's conviction, Illya can't bring herself to sacrifice a world to save a single person, so she decides that she wants to save both this world and Miyu. Her logic is that if the Grail can grant any wish, then it should be able to do that much at least. Ilya's speech gave Miyu the willpower to resist her fate of becoming the Grail, and Darius dares Kuro and Illya to try to stop him. Illya uninstalls Assassin, and Kuro spends a minute drooling over her outfit, saying how scandalous it looks, but this is really just a ploy to slip Illya the class cards that she brought with her. And I'm just now realizing that they never explain how Illya had the Assassin card with her. We know that 4 out of the 5 cards that Illya had before getting kidnapped were Rider, Saber, Lancer, and Caster, and we can assume the 5th one is Berserker, which doesn't get used very often because it's kind of impractical. And Kuro is the Archer class card, so where did Assassin come from? I can only assume that this was either a complete oversight, or Sapphire had it stored on her before reuniting with Illya and she forgot to tell us. Either way, they don't explain it. She's just suddenly in this install form. So after pretending to gush over Illya's skimpy clothes, Kuro gives her the class cards and whispers a plan to her. Sapphire explains the situation in great detail about how to save Luvia and Rin. But it turns out that Ruby, being useful for a second time, was listening in. Gil and Bizet hear the information and attack, releasing them from the spell.
その布は
ゲート・オブ・バビロンにしまっちゃダメだよ。これの所有権は僕にあるんだから、僕にも取り出せてしまう。このハデスの隠れ兜はね。
So he could access the cloth because Angelica put it back in the Gate of Babylon that she controls? But then why was his stockpile of weapons so small, like they mentioned earlier? It seems that every time the writing starts to get good, more and more plot holes start to show up. As the battle continues, Gil disappears to go on a secret mission, Kuro blasts the top of the tower open, and Illya flies in to rescue Miyu. Okay, that was a brilliant move. Casper's Noble Phantasm, Rule Breaker, is a dagger that destroys all magic and has only shown up once in this series so far, back during Tuvai. But that was a very smart move. Once Darius has been struck by it, he starts to melt and fall apart, as does the rest of the castle and the surrounding area. And then Beatrice shows back up.
ダリウス様を守れ。すべきことはそれだけだ。今まで何をしていた？
賢者モードってやつ？言わせんなっての？
You're nasty. Illya gives Sapphire back to Miyu, and we see exactly what Gil was up to.
出所だ。お兄ちゃん。
As Darius' form completely vanishes, another person is shown to have been inside him. Don't take that the wrong way. But it turns out that the person we saw earlier was Julian Ainsworth. He summons a large black cube, and Illya recognizes it from Tanaka's drawing. Miyu explains that Julian is Darius' son, and using his displacement magic, has been using his own body as a host for Darius' soul, since Darius actually died a long time ago. Julian then swipes the caster card from Illya and then destroys it. He then threatens to destroy anyone who gets in the way of his legend's completion. Erica is sad because Miyu isn't wanting to be her friend anymore, and Julian tells her that he is her only friend, ally, and family left.
お兄ちゃんを信じる。
Black mud starts pouring out of the giant block, and it starts to take physical form, as countless heroic spirits are manifested. Julian reveals that they're all the souls of fallen servants who failed to win the Holy Grail. And then, it happens.
どうしてあなたが？まさか。
あとは俺が始末をつける。
So this is one of the biggest saving graces that I hear people talking about for 3 Rai in the movie, that this is the best version of Shirou Emiya to ever exist. He's been out of the fight for 10 out of 12 episodes, so this better blow me away.
とりあえず。
Okay, color me impressed. This version of Shirou is a bona fide badass in his own right. He projects Gilgamesh's mountain-felling sword and uses it as a bridge to charge up the mountain towards Julian. He then squares up with Angelica and matches her blow for blow with his projection magic.
体は剣でできている。
Holy crap, he's gonna use unlimited blade works!
血は鉄で、心はガラス。
もはや発動すらできんか。
Damn it! So, since Shirou can't use his most powerful ability, Kuro jumps in to help him out. Angelica uses portal logic and fires the Gate of Babylon at an even faster speed than normal. Her spatial displacement even blocks up-close sword swings, but she didn't expect to strike from below.
道を譲れ。英雄を。
And for some pointless fan service, they show her bra come undone, but before they go all out with it, the card uninstalls and she has normal clothes back on. And yet they go balls to the wall with the pedo fan service.
たどり着いたぞ。ジュリアン。
ダメですよ、先輩。
Oh my god. That's Sakuramato using Fate Zero's Berserker card! That matchup is so well put together that it's actually terrifying. But, wait a minute. That would mean that Sakura is already dead then.
ミユ、クラスカード、アーチャー、インストール。待ってください、ミユ様。私だけ弾かれた。そのカードは何かおかしい。お兄ちゃんから離れろ。
Well, that strategy didn't work. We all know that this Berserker is the perfect counter to Gilgamesh. Beatrice smacks Shirou away with her hammer and then shatters the sword bridge.
なんだこりゃ。ハリボテかよ。
Nice attention to detail. Shirou's projections are often described as hollow replications of the real item.
私こと。
あんたを助けろとは言われてねえんで。じゃあな。
Rin catches Shirou mid-air and then tries to heal his wounds, while Kuro and Illya hold off the advancing Shadow Servants. As their fight drags on, Miyu's mind is being overtaken by the Gilgamesh card, and her body starts acting on its own. Julian tries to remove the card, but a chain grabs it first, and returns it to its proper owner. Beatrice tries to fight Kid Gil, but the chains of heaven restrain her. Berserker Sakura is too unstable to handle, so Julian binds her and Miyu with the Noble Phantasm card, and then disguises himself as Shirou to ease Sakura's rage.
部活もないし、今日はもう帰るんだろ？
そうですね。
それじゃあまた明日な。はい。
さようなら先輩。また明日。
Before Gilgamesh can interfere any further, Erica pleads with him to not intervene, because she believes in Julian's plan to save humanity.
私はただ頑張ってキトスを開けるの。
君って女はまさしく最悪の泥人形か。
That word she used, Pithos, that's a Greek word for a storage container. It's clear by this point that she's not a human, so that means that she's probably a servant. A Greek servant who is tied to a cube-shaped vessel that brings catastrophe? They don't come right out and say it, but I'm pretty sure that Erica's true name is Pandora, and that giant cube is her noble phantasm, Pandora's box. Gil decides to take his leave, having had his fill of amusement from this play, and not wanting to fight Beatrice outdoors. He departs after giving Julian the advice that in order to fully realize his wish, he will need 2 Holy Grails. Illya and the others are having a hard time holding back the Shadow Servants, even after using Excalibur to vaporize a large portion of them. Meanwhile, back at school, Tanaka has awakened, and she finds a note that was left for her telling her where the others went. Her body has grown so hot that every step she takes leaves a burn mark on the floor. She makes it up to the roof and throws a fireball that lands right in front of Illya, revealing a flaming dragon wing-shaped sword. This blade has the power to burn away the muck from the cube, and Illya picks it up, heading for the source. She manages to stop the flow of black mud, as well as the infinite army of servants.
それはこの世界の断り、贋作を私たちを断罪する火の矢。
Julian retracts the cube like the Allspark, and then hands it to Erica, while Beatrice holds off Illya and Miyu. Once Erica has the cube, her form changes, looking much older than the child she appeared as earlier. With that last projection, Shirou has reached his limit and is on the verge of death. Rin's healing magic isn't enough to save him until Bazette shows up and gives her back her jewel necklace, saying that she found it in the cavern when they first got transported to this world. I'm kind of split on this one. On the one hand, yes, this is a callback to the original Fate Stay Night, but at the same time, the reason why Rin was carrying it earlier was never explained, and we're only shown the gemstone without knowing its purpose. It basically was just included for the sake of referencing the original work. Anyways, it works, Shirou survives, and the team heads back to the city. We then find out that the flaming sword has turned into a hand and is chasing Illya around. In addition to that, they brought Angelica back with them since she was abandoned by the Ainsworths as they escaped. They all head back to Shirou's house and we're shown Illya and Kuro having a bath together, where the disembodied hand harasses them some more. It writes a message on the window and they realize that the hand belongs to Tanaka. We get a few seconds of Rin and Luvia taking a bath, literally for no purpose other than fan service. No dialogue, just wasting time. They return Tanaka's hand to her and she puts it back on like it was nothing. Illya and Kuro then change into some onesies that belong to Miyu, and they confirm that the 3 of them are only 11 years old. So they're 11 now? Does that mean that back before the birthday episode in Two Vi Heroes there were only 10? In the end, Shirou is happy that his little sister found friends she can depend on. After the credits, we see the Ainsworths, and Julian swears revenge on Illya, saying that he's going to use both her and Miyu since he needs 2 Holy Grails. And for the last shot, we return to Shirou's house.
長い話になる。だからまずはこちらのことから話をしようと思う。俺とミユのこれまでの話を。
Yep, it ends off right there and then goes into the movie follow-up. So, was this the big saving grace for Fate Kaleid Liner? Did 3-Rai redeem the series and make it the best Fate work ever? I'm gonna say no. I will admit that it's not nearly as bad as Two Vi Hers was, but I'd say that it's only on par with the first season in terms of action sequences and the ratio of storytelling to useless garbage. I can give it credit that the majority of the nonsense this season wasn't just complete filler. Most of what happened, regardless of how stupid it was, actually helped further the story. The exceptions being Erica's overly drawn-out interactions with Illya, where you can chop off roughly 3/4 of the episode and not miss anything. And of course, that one Loli Yuri scene. While there was just one this season, this was the second worst one so far. The only one that was more graphic than this was the one from the OVA bathhouse episode. But if you wanted to, you could simply stop watching the episode after the fight before Kuro kisses Illya and skip over it completely. One thing that I cannot overlook are the two blatant plot holes that can't be covered up by just saying it's spin-off so the setup doesn't matter. Which, again, were Illya having the assassin card, and Gilgamesh suddenly being able to access Angelica's Gate of Babylon when he didn't show that he could do that earlier. Otherwise, this season would have been a lot shorter. Now for the plot and the story. I will agree that, yes, this so far has been the high point of Fate Kaleid Liner's plot. It turns out that this was never Illya's story at all. It was all Miyu's story. Powerful and organized enemies with a great agenda that has them literally crossing dimensions to do battle. But this is a double-edged sword, because this is also one of the biggest blows to my opinion of Kaleid Liner as a whole. With how bad the first 3 seasons got, we had to literally abandon the world altogether and go to a new one just to keep the plot moving forward in a decent way. There was just as much bullshit in this season as any of the others, but it was less deplorable, though it arguably got even weirder. While they don't waste literally half a season with filler and derail the plot with someone completely irrelevant to the story discovering her sexuality, they give us people turning into stuffed animals and hypnotized maids, both of which I'm pretty sure are obscure DeviantArt fetishes. At least they're broadening the spectrum of who they pander to. And with the whole back and forth of giving us plot progression and being able to take the story seriously and then hitting us with more and more nonsensical moments, it feels like a tug of war between the writers of the first 3 seasons and someone who actually knows how to carry a story properly. That's how I feel about the writing for this season in general. It feels as though it was handed to someone who was more competent, but just to keep the label of Prisma Illya on it, they had to add in some shenanigans to keep on theme. And yes, before anyone says anything, I know the same writers worked on all 4 seasons, and that the same author wrote every issue of the manga. But the tone shift is night and day. I'm still getting fanfiction vibes because of how many deliberate throwbacks to previous Fate works I'm seeing. Not even subtle homages, but directly lifting concepts from the other routes, like the 9 Lives Blade Works, the Jewel Healing, using Rule Breaker on the final boss, and so on. It is nice to see that they've done their homework, and maybe it's just me, and I could just be feeling this because I just got done rewatching the Heavensfield trilogy, but to me it feels like these moments were used as Easter eggs designed to entice fans of the previous works and distract them so that they won't be as likely to complain about the not-as-good moments, like Batman vs. Superman did. Just including a reference to a previous work doesn't automatically make it a good thing and could potentially cheapen the experience. Based on just this season alone, Shirou is a badass, and that's pretty cool, but I need a bit more build-up before I get invested in his story. And that apparently is what the movie is for, but I just wasn't blown away with 3 Rai. I didn't hate it, but I probably won't go back and rewatch it outside the fight sequences again. Is Oath Under Snow even worth looking at this point? Well, there's one way to find out. What's this? Coherent, well-written plot? A story that could be self-contained and viewed as a standalone work? Character exploration that is not only respectful to, but enhances the previous lore? Beautifully choreographed fight sequences, and the best version of Shirou Emiya ever to exist? Well, I've been led on before, but I guess we'll find out next time. Oh, are you done with the review? Yeah, just finished. Good job. Before you go, I want to give you something. What? You didn't have to do that. Come on, you need a souvenir from your first dimension jump. Well, thank you. What is it? Well, you said you were watching Fate, so I thought you might want to take a look at something else Type Moon's done. It's an anime series by the same company that did the Heavensfield adaptation. Ufotable? Ufotable? No, it's Studio Dean. Studio Dean did Heavensfield in this world? Yeah. Who's Ufotable? Tell you what, if I ever come back to this dimension, I'll show you all of Ufotable's Type Moon works. But it's getting late and I should be heading back. Thank you for the gift. No problem. Oh, one last question. Where's your Bree? Who's that? Bree. Your wife. I'm not married. Are you? Yeah, I think I prefer my world. I actually get married in another universe? Maybe one was right. I should go out more. Well, that was fun. I should try dimension jumping more often. Wonder if Rio's mad at me for making him play... Hello, what's this?
You are forgiven. Merry Christmas, asshole.
What the heck does that mean?
Jingle bell, jingle